Good evening and welcome to the working session of Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. We'll start with our first discussion to include number one, right of access request for city-owned parcels by NTS. Ms. Olivanti.
Mayor, members of the council, I received a request from Northeast Technical Services from Rick Crum. They have a client that they're working with that is investigating parcels for helium. So they sent me a map, which I gave to Greg and he's passing around, of several parcels throughout the city that they would like to drill a small small rod into about 2 feet down in the earth, excavate the rod and trap the gases as they do so. And I'm not technical on this, this is all Rick explaining it to me and me secondhand. So they would excavate the trapped gases in the soils and see if there's helium in them. The parcels that they're requesting a right of access to are on the map that I'm sending around. My question to you is this something you're interested in doing? These are all city-owned parcels, not private parcels. So we would write up a right of access agreement through our attorney like we always do with these particular parcels in mind if you're in agreement with doing something like that to move forward. This is an unusual request, so we did an internal discussion in staff and decided it should come before you to consider.
Yeah, this is speaking for myself, what a unique request. Well, especially knowing what has happened regionally. So,
what happens if they find a large deposit?
That's a good question, Councilor Schweiberger. I'm not 100% sure exactly how that process goes from there, but I do know that there's been processes worked on other local communities around that particular topic. My thoughts are they would have to secure the access to that property. That might be something that we would continue to own and allow them to excavate this helium deposit from, those sorts of things. Depends on where it's at and how it's located and what equipment would be required to access it and such. But the city of Hibbing, because these are city-owned properties, then would get to make those decisions. If they, I assume it would work similar to the mineral lease agreements and things like that, depending upon do we own the leases or the minerals underneath there or not, or are there other leaseholders? I'm not sure exactly how this would all work, but that's definitely something we will start investigating as we go forward.
Yeah, I personally think that would be, why not find out what's down there if we
absolutely.
can? There's a couple that look like it might have been a little close to residential. I don't know. The map's not really blown up, so I don't know, as long as they're not disturbing any of the residents when they're going in doing it. I'm sure if they're running, you said it was a 2-inch hole that they're boring down. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be real drastic.
What depth did you say?
2 feet.
Yeah, 2 feet. Yeah, it's not much for sampling.
Right, not much for disturbing the premises.
2 feet's the total, that's all they're going down?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's not like fracking.
I was thinking like 2,000.
Yeah,
Is this
this is just a sample. If they have samples, then they would.
You can do that with a shovel.
Is this Pulsar, or is this somebody different?
They wouldn't, and they probably can't disclose their end client at this time.
Very good. Very interesting information to bring forward tonight, Betsy. Thank you.
Yep. So I will work with Attorney Borland and we'll come back to you with something. The second item is discussion as well. We have a couple of buildings that we're going to take down on the 400 block in the near future. Those declarations will come before you at the February 19th City Council meeting. They will go before the EDA board the night before. There are some objects within those particular buildings that folks have reached out to both council members and me as staff, asking if they could secure portions of that building before they come down. I wanted to bring this in front of you because I've had a conversation internally with staff, city attorney, myself, city engineer and myself, and Greg. We sat down and talked about what would that look like. If you send out the request for bid to demolish the buildings and then have a bid alt on there to remove certain pieces, that who bears that cost, who bears that liability, et cetera. I didn't know exactly if you were interested in even entertaining these ideas, or if you wanted us to try and put together a process whereby we could be doing that.
Is that these buildings?
Yes.
Do you know what specifically they're talking about?
There's a couple of different items that I've reached out to staff and members of the council on. The wrought iron balconies are one item that has a couple of different individuals have talked to myself and Pat Green. And then prism windows inside. There's a gentleman who's more knowledgeable about which windows have value in historic buildings and if they could be salvaged.
Is it just in this hardware building?
That, I believe so, yes.
Yes, I think the one who reached out to me, it was just.
Yeah, and I believe the wrought iron balconies are on that particular building as well, which we do have clear title to at this time.
How many windows?
The report to me was 2,500 to 3,000 prism windows that come out in 5 to 6 foot sections, but that each window could be worth $5 to $10 a piece. However, when city engineer and I talked about this, he said it might cost $30,000 to specifically take out those particular things. You know, as we're trying to take this down, right? So I'm not sure if there's a way to allow a private entity into the building before we demolish and before our contracts, you know, our contractor's going to take it down, and, you know, would there be a right of access to remove and secure those particular pieces of property with their own insurance, et cetera. I'm just not sure exactly what we've done before and what you would be willing to entertain as a potential process.
I guess I look at the liability and does it outweigh the cost, right?
And
Somebody has to be liable for it, and isn't it structurally not sound? That's why it's so.
That, I wouldn't want this to get delayed any more than it already has. I mean, we're close to the finish line on doing something with that block, and, I mean,
If it did move forward, it would be something that you'd have to have insurance. If anybody removes demolition like that, they'd have to carry their liability insurance to cover the city. And there would have to be a time frame that this is our demolition, this is a time frame, you have insurance, this is what it'll cost you. You know, this is what it's worth to us, you know.
And also, how do you make sure that there's a fair and open process to let, you know, any interested parties have access to that process? That's one other, to Councilor Whitney's point, could slow that process down to take those buildings down. We do have some time, obviously, because we'll make the declarations, we'll go out for bids, we have to, you know, we have some time to work through that. I'm just wondering what your comfort level is with this.
Won't it need a staff person to oversee that process? I mean, who's going to do that?
So, great question. We have had several robust debates about this, and I think maybe where I will start is we certainly as a community support recycling. Of course we do. That being said, I'm not so sure the city should be in the salvage business. That's a little unsettling to me, whether that's using our internal assets to perform that work, or letting the general public access some of these buildings that are a public safety hazard to start with. That's a little unsettling. We talked a little bit about, well, if we have a contractor coming in to do the demolition work, if there were some professional salvage companies with the appropriate insurance and credibility, that salvage company could work with the demo company. Sometimes they're the same company. I mean, there are a lot of different ways that we could meet that need. All of the issues that you've identified, we've talked about that, and we do have some concerns about it. Again, public safety going into some of these buildings that are, I mean, they're being demolished for a reason.
Yeah.
We also understand that there's some pretty neat factors to the building, wrought iron, and just kind of really neat, ornate pieces that people would like to have and repurpose. We like that. It's just, how do we do that as a local government safely? But also, what we're trying to do is make sure we don't increase the costs to our taxpayers. So those are all of the things that we've been talking about.
Would the process be that once our RFP is out with whoever's gonna do our demolition, that person could be in contact with the person that questions us about accessing that? That could be a subcontract with them, as long as, if it did work out and met our time frame, that's between the demolition company and if he chose not to, we don't do it, they do it internally, once we turn the demolition over to them.
That's where we landed. Ultimately, we landed with, let's do the bid for the demo work. If there are parties interested in salvage operations, they can work directly with that contractor. That contractor can oversee any sort of insurances, liabilities, access, that type of a scenario. That is where we landed, so.
I know they salvaged, when they took down Immaculate Conception, there was a partial salvage during that demolition. Not sure how that was set up, but, you know, it's doable because it's done all the time.
Right.
But I agree, we shouldn't be the contractors with that agreement.
Right.
So this kind of thing will come up again in some other demolitions that we have going on. I know, you know, we secured the Hong Kong to also,
Yep.
you know, that's a building that's dilapidated and needs to come down. So of course, requests have come in for that sign that's on the front of it, et cetera. But that's why this conversation is coming before you tonight. So I think we have a little bit of a path towards direction. We'll let folks know once we pick some, whoever earns that salvage or that demolition bid, that they can work with that particular contractor and see if they can figure out a way to move forward on that. Excellent, thank you very much.
Yeah, sounds like a great directive. Okay, that moves us on to number 2, which is a roundtable discussion, starting with you, Mr. Persinski.
Mayor, City Council, nothing from my office this evening.
Good.
I'm good as well.
Good.
I am good.
I'm good.
I'm not breaking it.
I'm sorry.
You're good, Jess?
one
All right.
thing. I sent everyone on the council an email following my poll about having a joint meeting with the Public Utilities Commission. After I went through the poll, it was really divided on availability between commissioners and council members, and so there really wasn't a good day of any of those 3 dates. So what we landed on after talking to General Manager Luke Peterson was to join the commission's meeting on March 11th at 5 o'clock at City Hall, so,
March 11th.
yep,
What day is that?
a Tuesday.
Tuesday?
At 5 o'clock?
I believe the commission meets at 5, right? Yeah.
5 p.m. You'll send out an invite then?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. All right, Mr. Barland?
Pass.
Pass. With that, we have adjourned.
Wow.